Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It's March the 18th, and we are rolling. I got to tell you, I'm absolutely obsessed with one thing and one thing only right now. It is the deportation conversation. I cannot get enough of it. I listened to the same 10 minutes of television about 4 times yesterday. And it's Stephen Miller, who might be my human spirit animal, if that's such a thing. Somebody once told me that I was their spirit animal. If I had a spirit animal, it would be Stephen Miller, and he's been going out and dominating. It's the way he says it. It's the way he's saying the things that we've been talking about here for quite a while. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Dan Bongino was sworn in yesterday as the deputy director of the FBI. I would be remiss if we did not cover that down. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the structure of the FBI, what is and what is not on the docket, and the fact that Dan being sworn in, it's not victory, folks. This is not an end zone dance time. Dan Bongino being sworn in as the deputy director is the coin toss that is going to start the game. And there is a very narrow window during which he and Kash Patel can try to, I'm going to mix metaphors a little bit here, but take the beach in the same way that you have to storm it to be able to get a foothold in an amphibious landing. This is a battle. It will be a battle for a lot of things that are really important in this country, and whether or not we are going to see safety or whether we're going to see more danger coming from our federal institutions. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about Title 50 and the powers of the commander-in-chief, something that was brought up in the deportation discussion. Let's see what else we got here. Let's start with that, and maybe some conflict of interests done by U.S. judges. It sounds like the judge that was actually involved in the story we talked about yesterday was also recommended for impeachment. Young freshman Congressman Brandon Gill, who's someone that I've worked with. I worked with him on Police State, is filing articles. I'm 100% behind this. I would like to see consequences. I do think that's what we voted for. We being those of us that want to see something different than what we've been seeing, who want to fight against the status quo. The status quo is our enemy right now. And we need to get the more momentum rolling in that favor, in that mechanism, in that direction. So that's where we're going to go with today's show. I hope you guys stick around for it. I hope you guys will also go ahead and support us over on Rumble. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. That's where you find us. You can also find us on X and on YouTube. It's at Kyle Seraphin. If you want to support the Locals channel, which is great, it's a boon. It keeps us independent and nobody can tell us what to do. It's kyleseraphin.com to sign up with that. And then lastly, if you just want to give us great data and download in a better position, you could do it on Apple. Obviously, a lot of people do, but growing, about 25% of our audience is going on Spotify right now. It costs you nothing. It's free to download, and you can find us there without any ads, and the video is along with it. So you can switch between audio and video with zero issues at all. I recommend it if you guys are so interested. All right, before we get started, let's talk about this. Between government and big tech and corporate America and criminals, there's always somebody that is out there trying to find your data. They are trying to hunt down your privacy and compromise you 24/7. You have no other option except to protect yourself. No one else will do it. And that starts with silence. Guys, you can get your own Faraday sleeve, a RF signal blocking system. I'm going to put mine in right now that I think about it. Here's my sleeve that I use while we're doing the program. Their Faraday blocking technology will stop all incoming and outgoing signals that make your devices basically invisible from the outside world. They actually work. I've tested them in the same protocols I used when I was working for the Bureau, from backpacks to phone sleeves. You can even get pants if you're that kind of a person. If you need a specific mission set that's going to be able to do that, their signal blocking technology will stop all wireless signal, gives you peace of mind. Your data is not out there pinging all the different systems as you walk around and telling everybody where you were, sort of Minority Report style. You just place your device inside, as you saw, you close it, and that's it. You're safeguarded from unauthorized access. You can go silent today going to slnt.com/Kyle. Save yourself 15% 15% on qualifying orders. You can check out that E3 Faraday backpack, which I've got on the screen right now. You'll stay ahead of what's coming. You'll secure your privacy today. It's slnt.com. That's silent with no vowels. Silent.com/KYLE. 15% off. That's no nothing. These are really well-made products. And if you need something that's made in the USA, you can even opt for that. They have an entire collection of USA-made sewing gear. You're not going to see any better quality, but if you want to support America in that way, there's a price point. They give you kind of the option. Choose your own adventure, if you will. Great company, great people. I've met the owner. I've met the folks that run it, and their story is good as well. We'll put some of that out on social media. Again, silent.com, slnt.com/KYLE. All right, let's dive into this deportation conversation right now. One of the things you guys will notice, I don't like to use a lot of talking points. I don't really go towards it's the Mockingbird media. I will talk about mainstream because they are a legacy organization. There is an organ of the state that comes out, and we can pretty accurately assess who is and who is not mainstream. Old print, television stations, radio, that's all pretty mainstream. For some reason, conservative media likes to exempt itself. You'll even hear people like Fox, who is most definitely part of the mainstream. One of the things that I do notice, though, is when someone starts picking up a particular phrase, I don't know if it just resonates with them or if they have been instructed to do so. No one's ever instructed me. No one's ever sent me the email. I have to imagine there's something like this, though, out there. They're like, by the way, this is what we're doing. This is what the movement demands of you. And there is no better mouthpiece for the movement than Don Lemon. Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, he said everything that he needed to say, and he's very, very desperate right now to maintain some sort of relevancy. He had a much bigger platform, frittered it away by being on CNN, lost credibility, and now has an independent platform and claims, I'm sure he's probably making some of the money that he was before, but has nowhere near the reach. There's no possibility that he does. So he goes on Bill Maher, and Bill Maher is always interesting to me because Bill Maher is where some things get floated. And right now there's this concept, this imminence. And by the way, it actually is relevant to those of us on the right. The concept of in this moment. In this moment is a phrase that I think is meant to convey like imminence and the necessary actions that have to happen at this exact time. I don't know if it polls really well to say it this way, but when I hear a dozen different talking heads and members of Congress and the Senate and people going on all these legacy outlets and talking, and you also hear it on podcasts coming from the political left, somebody has trotted out this talking point. They understand that there is a political moment. The only thing that the Democrats have not realized is that the things that they have seized on are actually losing the moment. So I don't want to stop them from what they're doing, but I do want to acknowledge and recognize that there is an imminent understanding that this is a turning point in the same way as landing a new FBI deputy director is a turning point. It's a beach landing. It is opening the landing craft, watching the doors flop down, and guys marching out, wearing their K-pots and carrying their rifles, trudging through the water, trying to get a foothold. The Democrats are trying to do it too. I don't think they're being successful because they continue to just major in the minors. They are talking about the 20% of every 80-20 issue. They are running away from common sense and telling everybody else that they're the problem. But it's not that they don't recognize that there is, in fact, a problem. Here's Bill Maher talking to Don Lemon, and listen to this turn of phrase, in this moment. Now, his argument is, and I think it's hilarious because, again, they need to turn momentum. How are they going to do it? They're going to get the fresh faces that are no longer so fresh and certainly less face than they used to be. Just borrowing a little homage there from Ben Shapiro when I used to listen sitting in my surveillance cars. I don't think the Democrat Party is demanding it, at least not the main part of the main contingent of, let's say, gettable voters. They're not saying, give us more AOC, give us more Jasmine Crockett, but I'm down with them asking for it. I think they're actually running more aggressively towards the, they think that they just needed to go harder left. They didn't tack hard enough left. If Donald Trump represented anything, he represented a Democrat position from the 1990s. We've shown you ample evidence over the years that the things that Hillary Clinton said when she ran against Barack Obama, the things that Barack Obama said in 2008, the things that Bill Clinton said in 1992 and in 1996, the State of the Union from 1995, all of these little like arguments They're all essentially mainstream American Democrat talking points. They were the way that you get the middle. And Donald Trump got the middle. The problem is that the Overton window, that is the parameters of left and right, which is appropriate to talk about, has moved so far left that what is used to be the middle is now considered, quote unquote, far right. I see a lot of different people that are covering the swearing in of Bongino and saying that he's a far right podcaster. That is a regular talking point picked up by the political left at this point, by the mainstream media, by the legacy folks. He's a far right podcaster. I assume that I fall into that category as well. Media Matters has said as much. But we're not so much far right as we are relatively centrist and leaning slightly conservative. I'm not even that aggressively conservative. I don't actually care if men want to get married to men. I just don't think that the government should recognize it, and I don't recognize it either. But I don't really care what you do in your own life. That's sort of a libertarian position. I'm a live and let live kind of guy. I got plenty of my own problems. I got to deal with my own sins. You deal with your sins. That actually is not like a hard, staunch, go out and condemn everybody, fire and brimstone position from, let's say, the 60s, 70s, or 80s, which did turn off a lot of people. I am definitely a product of the 80s and 90s where I grew up. But that centrist attitude of just do your own thing, do your own America, just stay out of mine, stay away from my kids, that is now considered far right. Again, that is a shift in the Overton window. It comes at the talking point. And as the left continues to try to evaluate how do we get some of those people from what they would consider the far right, which is really the middle from 20 or 30 years ago, or even 15 years ago, as we've shown, like I said, Obama yesterday, we played it on the program, 2008, while he was talking, was saying we had to deport people. This was not a contentious point. If we're talking about a common sense revolution, as Donald Trump talked about, we're really just talking about resetting the clock only 30 years. We should be talking about resetting the clock like 100 or 125 if we want a real moment of revolution. But still, I will accept common sense over all else. I've set this up in a long way. This is Bill Maher talking to Don Lemon, saying maybe the most ridiculous and crazy thing, that we need more radical leftists. Again, this is not a winning position, and I do want the left to get actually more in line with that center position, only because when we do have, let's say, a balance in the force, when we do have a left that is talking about reasonable things from a reasonable position, we actually are going to get closer to a better version of America. As it stands right now, there's only one party that's acting rationally, which is why you have a mandate for someone like Donald Trump. It's not a healthy position. And it is going to swing us back. Anyway, here we go. Podcast. Listen for the phrase "in this moment," and because you're going to find out why that's important in a second.
People love AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't. But she's
AOC,
very far left.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Because because people will vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket. Because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think that Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and Fetterman is because it's irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down.
It implies it.
But that doesn't mean that she was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies that for some that.
It implies something that's not true. Yes, she's not someone who dealt with a lot of difficulty. She doesn't actually have any sort of connection there. Listen, in this moment, his belief is that there's an authenticity to AOC. Listen to how authentic this is. We use the term Mockingbird media, or I've heard the term used many times. I use it fairly infrequently. But the term Mockingbird, in addition to being coming from Operation Mockingbird, right, the CIA program, the concept of a mockingbird, if you live in Texas, you know about the mockingbird. It mimics calls. It sounds the same. It hears something else, and then it makes the same sound. Listen to this moment in the Mockingbird media. And there's only one way to say it. The call is mimicked in this moment over and over. I have got 9 examples back to back. Credit to Western Lensman who put this together, as far as I can tell. This is a compilation, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth coming into the program just to watch the visual as it skips from scene to scene, from network to network, using the expression "in this moment," whether they have the right idea or the wrong. And I'm fairly confident their ideas are wrong, and the things that they are pushing are in fact wrong. They do have an understanding that there is an imminence that is needed right now. Thankfully, in this moment where we are seeing deportations and there's a push, that imminence is being grasped by people who don't understand what is being asked of them. They don't know how to move the needle. So they're actually failing at it. And I'm fine with this. As some of you have just said in our chat, no big deal. You can lose all day long and I won't fight you on it. But I am going to call out what is losing. And what's losing is a failure to grasp where Americans sit. Americans are looking nostalgically at a time from when I was, let's say, a teenager and a young adult, which is kind of funny. The major people that are having the block of folks that are most imminently concerned, 30s and 40s, people who have children that are young. And yes, we started late, so I've got young children. At 43 years old, I've got much younger children, and I still have gray in my beard. That's not an ideal situation, but that's actually part of the legacy of what we've seen. In the 80s, we were told, wait, go get college degrees and make sure you get your career in line and don't take on kids before you can afford it. That actually worked out fairly okay, other than my sleep has suffered. Some of you know this, but my best friend has 2 kids that are in college right now, and he's an empty nester. He's an empty nester at 43 years old, which used to be far more common. Again, we got the wrong information in some ways. This Mockingbird media is parroting something because they don't understand that old messaging, the progressive movement from 80s to 90s, early 2000s into the craziness of the 2020s, they have gotten the message wrong. So they know that the message needs to be pushed. They know that there's a moment right now that is happening, as they all say it, but they got the wrong idea of how to turn that tide. If we're lucky, we'll get more Stephen Millers and less AOCs, less Don Lemons, less this nonsense. If we're lucky, we'll get more of them being radical and silly and talking about violence, which is where you go when your words no longer work. And I've got a couple of examples of some radical leftists, professors, crazy liberal white women's getting up in front of a stage screaming about things they cannot do. This sort of impotent rage saying now it's time to get physically violent. That is the last resource when you don't actually have the ability to use the things under the First Amendment, which is convey an argument that resonates with people. So I'm going to show you leftists arguing, in fact, for violence, grabbing the gun and no longer becoming oppressed. That's literally the words that are being used by college professors. And then on the other side of it, people who are using words to affect. And in this case, my spirit animal, Stephen Miller, doing it. Okay, Mockingbird media moment. Set yourself up. 9 examples of people using that same phrase, which tells you something about the way they're looking at the problem.
The strength that we have is in this moment.
Listen to your constituents. Center them in this moment.
But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment.
I think about what's happening, in this moment.
What's important is that we meet this moment.
So are these current Democrats the ones to meet the moment?
What do you want to see us doing right now in this moment?
And which Democrats are actually going to stand up against Elon Musk and Donald Trump in this moment?
The fight that you all are exhibiting is not just what the base wants, but it's what this moment requires.
You get it? They know there is a moment, even if they don't understand what it takes. And by the way, all those voices minus like 2, maybe one of them was some sort of oppressed minority group. They're still doing the playbook from, like, let's say the early 90s, where political correctness grew into politically compelled speech, which grew into sort of the massive nonsense that we deal with right now. You had black women, you had allegedly Hispanic women, you had a gay man in Tim Walz. I think he's gay. I think that's what I was... he looks gay. Anyhow, then you've got a guy who's philandering on his wife right now in Senator Chris Murphy, right? You had a number of black women that were hosts talking on different networks. That was an entire gamut from CNN and MSNBC all the way to congresspeople, senators, the whole swath of them talking about the same thing, knowing that there is in fact a moment. And then at the same time demonstrating a tone deafness because they've all missed it. They've missed it because of the type of messaging that they're doing. To the point where You're getting overtly racist messaging. I'm going to go back to Don Lemon for a second here. Overtly racist. And then because that doesn't land, we're going to call you the meanest thing we can do, which is to say that you are a lying, disingenuous person. And then because that's not going to land well, we're going to advocate on behalf of violence. This is the position that the left has taken right now. And we're watching it happen in real time. This is his argument that you cannot be black and Republican. This is a terrible argument. If there was ever a group, first of all, historically, black people voted Republicans because Republicans freed the slaves. To argue that there was this inversion and flip and everybody took on the different thing, I've heard of it. I've heard the Southern strategy arguments. They don't land with me. The principles remained the same. Maybe the people that were voting in the blocks changed a little bit. It doesn't ring true. But if you're going to overtly state that you cannot be an independent thinking black person who decides, okay, these values more appropriately align with me. I don't know very many black people that don't go to church. It's just built into the culture. Isn't that sort of the thing that the conservative movement and therefore many people who fall into the MAGA category are standing behind? Isn't it that there are, in fact, values that are eternal, that there are some things that predate this country, sort of those quote unquote God-given rights? It presumes that there's a God. And if you believe in a church, if you believe in a God above a government, that the handouts from the government are not superior to the blessings given out by an almighty creator, like that's a conservative position. There's a simple messaging moment here. Allow all of the voices on the hard left to say that for you to think any differently than me, you are defective, and watch people walk away from it, because people are contrarians by nature. Nobody likes to be told exactly who they are and then fall in line. It's one thing to chirp out the same message as a mockingbird. It's quite another to demand that people self-identify as sheep and that they are going to follow a herd. Because when you do, what you keep finding is that men, which is the moment that we're in right now, masculine men are going like, hey, I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of just working my job and telling everyone else telling me how things are supposed to be. I have opinions too. I have some thoughts. I'm going to stand up and say no. And I don't need an effeminate black TV host man who's also gay, apparently married to a white guy. I'll use married again, telling us that I can't think the way that I want. Here he is making the argument that if you're black and you're conservative, you're immediately going to be celebrated. I think that people who just come to the ideas that we do, we go like, oh, okay, fine. Congratulations. Welcome to the team. You know, listen, because we've got a lot of things that you probably don't know yet. But nobody's out there just saying, like, we're immediately going to put you on as an interviewee, that you're going to be celebrated with everything. Here's Don Lemon making another losing argument. And I think these are great. Carry it on.
It's the same thing that when I see not all black Republicans, but I see a black MAGA person who is carrying Donald Trump's water and they know that he's lying. It is the shortest line to the front. Because if you're black and you're whatever, you're just in line with a bunch of other Democrats that are doing the same thing that you're doing. But if you become a black MAGA person, it's like, whoa, let's book this person. Let's put him on television.
So you don't think you can be a sincere black MAGA person?
No, I just said, I don't think that, I just said, I think there can be sincere Republicans.
But you can't be a sincere black Republican?
I don't think that you can be a rational MAGA, be black and be a rational MAGA person. I think you can be black and be a Republican.
I think they would find that very insulting.
Well, I mean, the truth is often insulting.
Yikes. Right? That's a little bit of projection there, isn't it? To think that somebody would change their political stance simply to quote unquote get ahead, to go front of the line. That seems like something that would come from like that idea that you would do the same thing. You know, like you would identify with the status quo, the politics that are appropriate for you to be able to get the thing you want. Kind of feels like Don Lemon has that instinct, and now he has prescribed it. He has projected it upon other people. There's going to be more of it. Like I said, when the talking stops, the shooting has to start. That's sort of the attitude that they have. It's pretty gross. One of the things you can do, we'll go ahead and do a sponsor read here. One of the things you can do is that you can actually hedge yourself against all kind of crazy things. And one of the things that is worst, if you ever had to get into a fight, you don't want to do it when you're sick. I don't think it's coming right now, but I do think we have a limited timetable. So if you guys want to make sure that you are well prepared, as we always say here, check out my friends over at the Wellness Company. It's twc.health/Kyle. I don't like being sick. You don't like being sick. I really don't like working or fighting when I'm sick. And I've had to do that. I had to train through a lot of illness when I was in the military. It sucks. If you've been an adult for any period of time, you understand it's much easier to not have to run errands, to be able to just actually use that time for downtime, minimal rest. It always costs you something. You can avoid pharmacy lines and waiting rooms by going ahead and getting an emergency medical kit. So you can solve your problems at home right away, prepare so you don't have to repair. That's the recommendation here. The emergency medical kit, which you're going to find on the wellness site, it's twc.health/Kyle. They have 8 emergency prescriptions, life-saving medications, including ivermectin, a generic Z-Pack, amoxicillin, some broad-spectrum antibiotics to be able to solve many of life's most common ailments, and a guidebook that's going to talk you through how to do it. I actually have them over on the wall behind me over here, so I always know where to find them. You can also check out the Contagion Emergency Kit, which has ivermectin, it has hydroxychloroquine, it has the Z-Pack, but it also has a Tamiflu, which is we're in the tail stages right now, ending. Some of you guys are still in the cold and flu season, so you can punch through that as a nebulizer. If you're looking for something that will give you an opportunity to solve your own problems, check out twc.health/Kyle. That self-reliance is not a bad idea. It's a 2-minute intake survey after you finish your order, and you'll get it shipped out to your door. I like going to my my medicine cabinet versus going to a pharmacy. I don't even like going outside my house, guys. I really don't. If you know anything about that, you know that's true. I like to look out the window and go, ooh, I don't want to be there. I want to be at home, hanging out with my kids and doing my thing. Okay, we're going to continue pressing onward with this. Let's get into the deportation conversation, shall we? The deportation conversation has everything to do with this push. As I said, they're going to say things, including having judges say things like a verbal order telling a plane to turn around that he had no authority to command. And then once you're done saying things, then you have to start acting like it's time to pick up weapons. But here's the coverage. This is something we talked about yesterday. We're going to get even more into it because I just find it very, very fascinating. The judge questions the Trump administration now on whether or not it ignored the order to turn around deportation flights. This is coming from the Associated Press. Everybody has the same picture. Maybe it's because that dude looks kind of like Bane with that stick. Bane, the Batman villain. He's got this like mask on of some kind. He's got a balaclava hiding his face. This is an El Salvadorian prison where they've taken a bunch of TDA members, a bunch of MS-13 members, a bunch of these like hyper-violent gang members that came out of the United States and other places. They've locked them all up in this sort of prison, the Supermax prison in El Salvador in exchange for some money, which is a lot of money to them and not very much money for us when it comes to prison costs. And it seems like a pretty good deal all around. I'm just saying, like, the financials of it make sense from what I've been able to read. It is a lot cheaper to offshore these people. Here's the story. A federal judge on Monday, that's yesterday, questioned whether the Trump administration ignored his orders to turn around planes that were carrying deportees to El Salvador as a possible violation of the decision he issued minutes before. A possible violation of the decision that a judge, who's the district judge in Washington, D.C., issued. He was incredulous that the administration's contention that his verbal directions did not count, that only his written order needed to be followed, and that it could not apply to flights after they left the United States, and that the administration could not answer his questions about the deportations due to national security issues. It goes on to say his quote, "I think that's one heck of a stretch." In fact, I think I actually have, yeah, there it is. This was the ABC article. "That's one heck of a stretch, I think," Boasberg replied, noting that the administration knew the planes were departing and that they decided basically not to halt it and just carried on. And they were doing so under a rarely used 18th century law invoked by Donald Trump an hour earlier. "I'm just asking how you think," here it is. Are you ready for this? This is where the hubris part comes in. "I'm just asking how you think that my equitable powers do not attach to a plane that has departed the U.S., even if it's in international airspace. Equitable powers by an inferior court judge." Again, that's the language of the Constitution. An inferior court. That is how they describe the non-Supreme Court in Article 3 of the Constitution. And this is something that I have been kind of hammering on. I don't understand why, and I have not understood why. Everybody just goes, well, that's just what judges do, and so why don't we just listen to everything they say? Why are they not the ones who are the boss? You'll notice that he said why they didn't obey me. And so now you're going to have the Mockingbird press pick up that talking point. Why did you not obey me? Did you, in fact, ignore? The word ignore and obey. Those are the two operative words in this particular conversation. I'm going to show you probably the most prominent voices in it. Right now, we've got Caitlin Collins asking in a White House briefing and asking asking Carolyn Levitt, the White House spokesperson, hey, did you guys ignore this verbal order from the judge? Why did you not obey it? Here it is. And then we're going to get to, as I promise you, my spirit animal getting after it. These guys are inferior judges for a reason. They are not supposed to be able to enjoin the president of the United States on things far outside of their authorities. Here we go.
Talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m. But he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing. A verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were in the air?
There's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court.
All right. So there you go. It's been stated. Asked and answered. That doesn't mean that they're done with this. They want to get an answer. What they really want is a gotcha soundbite saying we ignored the verbal and or written order of a judge so that we can go out there and campaign on this. This is what CNN is trying to push. They're very much trying to get this answer. And so that's going to lead us to maybe the best, 10 minutes of television that I could find. I'm tempted to actually play the entire interview because it's like watching a train wreck. And what you're going to see is Stephen Miller educating a CNN host while she is simply I have to imagine she's got somebody in her ear that's chirping, just ask him the question again, try to get him to answer. And all he's doing is saying, I'm smarter than you are. I know more things about this than you. And I have been wargaming this possibility of using this particular law for literally years. The odds are that they were using a 1798 law talking about aliens, criminal aliens in the United States. They've been working on this probably forever. I have to imagine that Stephen Miller wargamed this out so many times that this is like playing tic-tac-toe with your kids who are young. I win every time, or we do a draw. I just play long enough until I wear you down and then I get a shot and then I win. My kids are basically, they're 0-100 against dad with some ties. Stephen Miller is not playing against a fair opponent, but he does dominate and he says all the things that need to be said. And then what I've got here, he makes a reference to Title 50 in this clip. As I said, I listened to it a few times. I pulled up Title 50. We're going to go through most of it, because it's a very, very, very short law when it talks about the powers of the commander-in-chief, and he accurately represents it. Here we go.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end quote, and said that it was an assault on democracy itself. Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the President the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up.
We want to defend the status quo. Wouldn't you agree, Stephen? This is very simpleton argument. Wouldn't you agree that the judges are the ones who get to decide whether or not you get to use the authority that is vested in the Article 2 powers of the executive? So she's setting up, she's trying to presume something, and he's going to destroy this because he gives a simple example where that is obviously not the case. But she can't take it. And this goes on, as I said, for 10 minutes of her arguing against herself, essentially.
At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment. And I fail to see how there's any other way but to start with where we're starting here before you get to eventually the Supreme Court.
Well, so first of all, there's a term in law, justiciable. This is not justiciable. In other words, this is not subject to judicial remedy. When the president is exercising his Article 2 powers to defend the country against an invasion or to repel a foreign terrorist that is unlawfully in the country, he's exercising his core Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief.
Is Venezuela invading the U.S.?
This is a very important point. This is a Title 50 authority. It's a commander-in-chief authority. So just to ask you a simple question, you talk about how the system works. Does a district court judge have the right to direct or enjoin troop movements overseas? Yes or no?
Well, Stephen, my question... you could answer my question first.
In other words,
is Venezuela invading our country in a way that would apply this way?
So I'll answer yours and you'll answer mine. Under the terms of the statute, Tren de Aragua is an alien enemy force that has come here as detailed at length in the proclamation at the direction of the Venezuelan government.
She's getting notes in her ear right now.
That a president has the ability to repel an invasion or predatory incursion that is directed by a foreign
state
government.
or a government, right? Are they a state or a government?
This would be, yes, it is documented that TDA was sent by the Venezuelan government in the proclamation. And here's an even more important point. Under the Constitution, who makes that determination? A district court judge elected by no one or the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy? The president and the president alone makes a decision of what triggers that determination.
So do you then think we are actually at war with Venezuela?
So she's going to try to get him to answer something that is not what he's talking about. He's talking about the Title 50 authorities to restrain, regulate, and remove criminal aliens. And as he said, it's a Title 50 authority. It's very simple. He won't take the bait. Are we at war with Venezuela? We're trying to bait into some sort of nonsense. These are straw man tactics. So I set up something very easy. We're not at war with Venezuela. Are we at war with Venezuela? No. Then how can you do this thing? He says, I'm not going to answer this. I'm smarter than you. I'm an attorney, and I'm going to go ahead and lean on the statute. And more importantly, I would actually argue they are, in fact, ignoring the district court judge. They just don't want to give the soundbite. And that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with not giving this woman the soundbite she's hoping for. Don't tell him you're ignoring them. Just talk around them, which is what he's currently doing. And he's running circles around this lady. I'll play a little bit more of it in a second. But the key is you hone in on the fact that there is, in fact, a court that is supposedly going to be a co-equal branch of government. It's just not the inferior court that lives underneath in a small district who looks like this guy. I think I've got a picture of him. Who looks like this guy, James Boasberg, as Miller pointed out, elected by no one. Has executive authority over nothing, cannot enjoin movements of troops, movements of military aircraft, movements of military armor. He has no ability to affect any sort of statecraft, any sort of the negotiations going on between Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and other foreign governments. This is not his purview. He doesn't have that authority. So the judge saying it's a heck of a stretch. A judge stating, I'm going to make a decision on whether or not the president's policy and executing the president's purview is, in fact, something I agree with. We're going to go to the statute in a second. Before we do, we're going to talk about some other people that know a little bit about freedom, know a little bit about fighting for freedom, and know about how to make yourself feel a little bit better when you are, in fact, in that fight. It's my friends over at Undertac. Guys, undertac.com. The promo code is Kyle20 to save yourself 20%. It's the better deal than anyone else will get. When it comes to handling anything, there's no better choice than Undertac. It is an underwear product that has made me actually swap out something I've been wearing for 16 years, and I am a very picky customer. I don't like change. This was designed for and tested by elite special forces ODAs in Africa's harshest conditions. Undertac is made to perform when it matters most, whether you're navigating tough jungle terrain or you're just tackling your daily job, or maybe you're just lounging around in underwear, socks, shirts that are going to keep you dry and comfortable and mission ready. The one that's called Infantry is your daily wear one. The one that's called Recon is going to be a little bit more for like your PT time. It's more like the Spanx you probably used to wear if you were in the military. You guys know what I'm talking about. You wear them under your shorts so you don't get like chafing and stuff. They offer a tactical performance advantage that goes well beyond the basics. They have an ultra comfortable boxer that is American-made, battle-weaving merino socks, so you can get high-quality socks. Anybody who knows, if you live on your feet, you die in your socks. That's the most important thing. And then don't forget hoodies and EDC, that's everyday carry t-shirts, rugged enough for anything, comfortable enough for every day. Undertac.com is the website. like tactical underwear. Undertac.com. Promo code Kyle20 is how you save yourself 20% site-wide. Whether you're gearing up for adventure, everyday life, or whether you want to just wear something comfortable. Plus, they have a portion of profits that are going to go support veteran-run organizations that fight human trafficking. It's a no-brainer. It's a win-win. Undertac.com. Check out the link in the show description. Save yourself 20%. When I say that they're the only person that, like, they sent me these things and I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do it, but I'll try them on. And then 5 or 6 hours later, I was like, holy crap, I'm still wearing the same thing. And I haven't worn different style underwear in, like, seriously, 16 years, 2009, going back to June, wearing the same thing. It's kind of a nice change to be able to have something new to do. All right, we're going to keep pressing on. I want to go back actually to that interview only because it makes me laugh and it makes me happy when I see people that are just dominating. We're going to go a little bit further into it. Let me give Stephen Miller answering one more question here. She's going to just keep trying to get him to say, will you please just say that you're ignoring a federal judge so we can soundbite it? And he's like, nope, I'm going to keep hammering Article 50 policies. I'm going to give you the 3 conditions that can be met. And then I'm going to show you the actual law. We'll read pieces of it. Here we go.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end
That's
quote.
not what's supposed to happen here. Let's go back a little further. Here we go.
If each and every deportation has to be adjudicated in a district court judge. That means you have no country. It means you have no sovereignty. It means you have no future. It is fundamentally incompatible to have a country and have individual expulsions adjudicated by a single district court judge.
I'm just trying to figure out at what point in the system do you, because what does the Trump administration believe? Because we do have separation of powers in this country.
That you're
I hear what you're saying.
A judge.
You're saying the district court does not
This is the judiciary
have authority.
interfering
Stephen,
in
let me finish.
the executive function. That is the separation of powers. That is the separation of powers.
Did you ignore the judge's order here because you thought you could?
So the judge's order and the actions taken by the Departments of Defense, Justice, and Homeland Security are not in conflict. And the Department of Justice has been clear that they are not in conflict. But
so you think that you did go along with the order that the judge put out? You do not think that the Trump administration defied this order?
She's trying over and over to get the ignoring statement. Here's what I was trying to find an analogy for this. And the analogy that I came up with is as follows. It's the equivalent of the umpire in a baseball game. I don't do a lot of sports analogies, but this one made sense, right? The judge is supposed to be the umpire. They're not playing the game. They're not supposed to care who wins or loses. They're calling balls and strikes. They are deciding whether or not somebody is abiding by the terms of the game. Did the first baseman pull his foot when he caught the ball and the runner was running through, right? Was there a tag before the person actually hit the base? Does the tie go to the runner, et cetera, et cetera? Okay, this is the goal. The goal of the judiciary should be referee without any kind of preconceived notion, trying to pick a winner and loser. For the judge to decide whether or not the Trump administration can use this law, for me, I think it's like the umpire trying to tell and stop the game, tell the pitcher and the catcher what pitch they're allowed to throw. So if you've ever seen a baseball game, what you'll see is the pitcher gets up on the mound and he's got some choices when he's up there. First of all, he's going to choose whether he's going to pitch from the windup or he's going to pitch from the stretch, right? So depending on whether there's somebody on base, you're going to do something slightly differently. Imagine the Trump administration. They're saying, hey, we can go after certain people with certain ways. We're going to use certain tools. We have this sort of, we have this ability to prosecute using different statutes, and we can target them in certain ways to get the outcome. Okay, they are actually on a team. The team is, how do we make this happen? Okay, so imagine the pitcher's up there. He decides wind up or going from the stretch. There's advantages to both. One is quicker. One gives you a little bit more power and more delivery, and you got a little bit more control. Then he's got to decide what his grip is going to be on the ball. Okay, and that has to do with how he's going to throw. Is he going to throw a wind up? Is he going to throw a changeup? Is he going to throw a fastball? Is he going to throw a curveball? Is he going to throw a knuckle? He's got all these different options of what pitch he's going to throw. And the catcher is in there making that call, right? So the catcher will say, hey, I want you to throw me the fastball. And he shakes off the call. Imagine if the umpire wanted to get in on this. If the umpire is like, no, you can't throw a fastball to this guy. This guy is only a curveball hitter. You must throw him a curveball. And the umpire, is trying to weigh in on this, and so your catcher goes, no, we don't really give a shit what you have to say. We don't care at all what the umpire says about calling the pitch. And the pitcher says, I'm not interested. And so now you have people who are going to try to throw the pitch they want, the way that they want, and now you've got Now you've got this freaking umpire trying to enter into the game in a way that he is not permitted to do it. Stephen Miller, a little bit further on. I just want you to keep in mind the umpire is now trying to call the pitch. And you are also getting a spectator, theoretically, a commentator from up in the box, in the media box, who's going like, this umpire is calling the pitch and they're not listening to the umpire. How dare they? She's clutching her pearls. She's very offended on behalf of this judge.
As the Justice Department said, there is no conflict between the judge's order and the actions taken by the departments I just listed. But I'm making a deeper and more fundamental point.
Here it is.
If you don't have to follow it, why didn't you?
The district court has no ability to in any way restrain the president's authorities under the Alien Enemies Act or his ability to conduct the foreign affairs of the United States. Let me paint a picture for you. President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio had engaged in intensive diplomacy to obtain a bilateral security agreement with the nation of El Salvador. If a district court judge can join that bilateral security agreement, then we do not have a democracy.
Stephen, you've made your argument.
We do not have a foreign policy.
We've heard you say this. Did you ignore did the administration ignore the order from the district judge? It's a simple question.
I've answered.
He answered the question because he's not going to give you your soundbite, lady. Okay, I'm going to go over to the article, or sorry, the Title 50 authorities. All right, this is 50 USC Part 21, restraint, regulation, and removal. Let's put Donald Trump up on the screen. This is what they decided to use. Okay. And by the way, I'll put that entire 10-minute clip up. It's fantastic. I can't not watch it. I would actually just make that the entire podcast with a little bit of interruptions, but that doesn't seem fair. And it's not my interview. I didn't do it. I didn't get owned on that way. But good for Stephen Miller for standing up and doing it. We got a couple of the things we're going to cover down on. Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, that's one possibility. Possibility two, the word or is operative when you are reading legal statute. It means this is one possibility. Here's another option. Any invasion or predatory incursion, by the way, did you hear that Stephen Miller said the words predatory incursion, is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the United States soil by any foreign nation or government? Okay. The president makes public proclamation of the events. He talked about proclamation without explaining that he was using a proclamation. What happens is the president, as part of his Article 2 powers as defined underneath this U.S. statute passed by Congress in 1798, comes forward and states the following. This is happening. I am witnessing it as the commander-in-chief. And because it is a presidential authority, the commander-in-chief authority as given by 50 USC, you don't have time. In the moments of invasion to the United States, the president makes a proclamation saying, I observe the following to be true, and I am going to take the following actions. He proclaims that all native citizens, denizens, or subject to the hostile nations or government being of age 14 years and upward, who shall be within the United States and not actually naturalized, shall be liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. The end. There's more to it here. He's authorized by the proclamation or public act to direct conduct to be observed on the part of the United States towards the aliens who have become so liable. The manner and degree of the restraint shall be subject, and in cases upon the security of the residents, there's some other little kind of qualifications that go along there. Then we move on to 50 USC 22. That was part 21. 22, time allowed to settle affairs and depart. When an alien becomes liable as an enemy in a manner prescribed as in Title 20 or Part 21, Section 21, if they're not actually charged with hostility or other crimes against public safety, then he should be allowed to do some things, get his affairs in order. That's only if he is not actually accused of actual hostilities or crimes against public safety. So if he is, which is what is going on with TDA and MS-13 and others, then none of that matters. That's irrelevant. And those are the only times when you can see a judge actually enter it, as far as I can read the statute. Now you move into 23, jurisdictions of the United States courts and judges. After any such proclamation has been made, the several courts of the United States having criminal jurisdiction and several justices and judges within the United States are authorized, and it shall be their duty upon complaint against any alien resident and anyone who's at large within the jurisdiction to the danger of the public peace or safety, contrary to the tenor or the intent of the proclamation, blah, 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 blah. They give options for the judges to actually hear the cases against them. They can actually go after and make additional criminal complaints there. So they can charge somebody under this act, it sounds like. Then there's duties of the marshals, which is to say, round them up and get them the hell out. That is an option. That is the end of 50 USC section 21 through 24. This is all of what Stephen Miller is referencing. And then you've got people like, this is how I know we're right in this case. I know they're right because Andrew Weissman thinks they're wrong. Here's Stephen Miller doing a follow-up hit on Fox News. Again, we're going to play more of him than normal because it's awesome to hear it. And the statement is, nobody cares what Andrew Weissman says. This is what we voted for. This is the moment. The moment is strike aggressively right now. Here he is saying Andrew Weissman is a moron.
But let me play this first from somebody who I know is not a favorite of President Trump. This is Andrew Weissman, who's a former top Mueller prosecutor. Of course, it's not a huge surprise that he didn't like this operation. He doesn't think it's legal under the act that you just mentioned, Stephen. Watch.
We're not at war with Venezuela. We're not at war with the gang that is the subject of the executive order. There is no invasion that is going on. And you also have to show that the people you're removing are actually part of that gang, even if there were an invasion or a war. And this statute may, in fact, be very unconstitutional.
So the judge has to be convinced that these individuals aren't real. I mean, it's a huge group and, nobody's going to miss any of these people, but they're quantifiable. So can you prove that these individuals were linked with Tren de Aragua and that Tren de Aragua is part of a Maduro operation, Stephen?
So first of all, Andrew Weissman is an absolute moron. He is a moron, and he is a fool, and he's a degenerate. Andrew Weissman has devoted his career to putting innocent Americans in jail, taking away their civil liberties. He was involved in the Mueller coup against a democratically elected President Donald J. Trump. Weissman should never be on TV anywhere. He should hang his head in eternal shame for what he's done to this country. And now he's up there shilling for people who rape and murder Americans. That's who Andrew Weissman is. I met the mother of Jocelyn Nungary, Alexis Nungary, who President Trump honored at the State of the Union, named a national wildlife refuge after her daughter. Tren de Aragua terrorists took that 12-year-old angel and they tortured her to death. They sexually assaulted her. They stripped her and they dumped her body in a river. That's who President Trump has deported from this country. Behind every single one of those terrorists was another future rape victim, another future sex trafficking victim, another future murder victim.
That is the appropriate amount of outrage to have. What we have to also get down to, and I think Stephen Miller taps into this very appropriately, is that there are people that are now crying about the civil liberties of people that have no lawful right to be here, that have shown a tendency towards violence, and the statute states that you can make a proclamation and then the judges can go after it. Donald Trump, as the commander-in-chief, is doing exactly what you'd expect somebody to do. It's the same crap the left has been doing. It's the whole concept of I have a pen and I have a phone. I'm going to make some unilateral decisions. One of those decisions is about national defense. It's the reason why they use the word national security. There are not very many things that the judges have some oversight on when it comes to national security, and you're seeing it happen, and I cannot say it strongly enough. This is what needed to happen. A complete ignoring, whether they will admit to it or not, ignore federal judges in the inferior courts because they do not have the ability to stop things that are actually the elected representatives of the people under Article 2. The executive is supposed to execute the policies. The Congress is supposed to write them. The judges are supposed to be referees. They don't get to call the pitches. And this guy, which we've got it on the screen, who is he? He's the chief, what is he? The chief judge? I'll have to go and get his actual title. God forbid I say it wrong. He's the chief... Nope, that's the deputy attorney. I can't find his actual title. Sorry, guys. He's like the chief judge of the circuit of the district of DC. Wherever. He's a low-level district court judge. There's a circuit above him that's going to be the appeal circuit, and above that would be the Supreme Court. He is at the bottom of the judicial sort of totem pole. And he also seems to have some serious conflict of interest. Isn't it interesting that these people who are backing certain stuff tend to have all these weird little lines to folks that they shouldn't be listening to? His daughter is an activist. His daughter works for a group that's called Partners for Justice. I'm going to play you a video of his daughter's boss. This should be one of those things where you look at it and you go, look, I probably have a conflict of interest here. I'm going to just step aside and not hear this case. These people are so full of hubris that they act like they are impartial arbiters when in fact they are the most partial arbiters. This is his daughter's boss making arguments that it's not fair and you have to treat these people much more nicely and kindly and gently. Having worked child sex trafficking cases where MS-13 gang members were in fact taking young girls, they exploited them at parties and dragged them around, threw them on a filthy mattress in the middle of the woods somewhere, and then had men paying $20 or $30 a pop to get off the construction jobs they were on to go and have sex with this poor girl 20 or 30 times a day. When we say trafficking, it's a really nice way of saying raped repeatedly for years until they basically die or commit suicide. That's what we're talking about. And these guys are defending it. They're supposed to have due process when they're in the United States unless this happens and they are listed as alien enemies and deported forcefully to a supermax. And they could be tried by a military tribunal or just left outside of the U.S. That is a national security threat for our children. Here's the boss of the daughter of the judge who thinks we should be nicer.
It's your weekly video, and today I'm going to tell you about a legal loophole that lets prosecutors use different rules of evidence in court when they are prosecuting specific, usually black or brown people. Here's what I mean. Most places around the country have some kind of gang law at this point. And a lot of these gang laws are really loosey-goosey. They basically define a gang as like any 2 or more or 3 or more people who have any kind of unifying symbol who commit a kind of crime together. Now, when you think of how teenagers are and how often kids have unified, how often did we all draw that weird S in our notebooks? And I don't know, like shoplift candy, whatever. The point is, these laws can be very broadly applied because they are very, very vague. Who are they applied to? When we look at databases, for example, New York's gang database, it becomes apparent that these laws are almost exclusively applied to people of color. So, for example, in New York, 99% of people in the gang database are not white. This is really significant because what gang law is really intended to do is prosecute groups of people for doing crimes together, right? We actually already have laws for that.
Oh my God. And like, basically, it's just racism. It's just because you're racist, because they have skin color. And that's what I see. What I see is the skin color, not the fact that you're seeing organized gangs that have structure. And there are actually very rigid definitions of what constitutes criminal gangs. And you're talking about state and local level prosecutions. When we're talking about federal issues, which is generally speaking where you go after them for the big stuff, RICO and so on, there's actually a pretty high bar to meet. You have to actually show it. It's actually not that hard to do. They almost always now have tattoos. And there are plenty of white gang members, Aryan Nation, Aryan Brotherhoods, outlaw motorcycle gangs. Take your pick. There's entire segments doing OMB prosecutions. There's entire segments doing neo-Nazi type prosecutions, if they are in fact doing actual crimes. Her example was stealing candy, shoplifting. How about rape and murder, lady? How about you actually talk about the things that are the real problem here? Again, always goes to race. It's always about victimization. This is where the victimization gets dangerous. They are in a moment. They know they're in a moment. When you're losing the moment, you start turning towards violence. And so the most extreme and fringe people on the political left right now are talking about it. I've got 2 good examples from totally different areas. This one, I think, is a professor at American University. The irony of that is not lost on me. We're going to go a little bit long today. Enjoy this. When you grab the gun, you stop being oppressed and you stop being a victim. Sure. Now suddenly you believe in the Second Amendment? Interesting. The guy's also wearing one of those like Palestinian sort of neck wraps.
In the moment that you grab the gun, like Fanon says, you're no longer oppressed. You're now free. How do we teach that in the class? Just to say that in the class, my students' heads explode, right? To tell them about violence, as a revolutionary tool. As sometimes a revolutionary essential.
We actually need to crash the U.S. settler state, which has incredible reverberations and literally strangles the tentacles that are reaching into the Israeli state.
So we must stand with the armed resistance and work right now to end this impunity by disrupting the flow of weapons to Zionists. Because trust, the armed resistance will defeat Zionism if it was an open battlefield.
Yeah.
All right. And it goes back and forth. That guy was at Virginia Tech. They always have to frame it. This is predominantly looks like a Muslim discussion talking about that. Muslim professors in the United States talking about fighting Zionism, fighting the Jews or whatever, all this kind of thing. It doesn't just stop there, though, because that's the most radical fringe of it. That normalizes the idea. And then you get like regular white ladies who are out there shrieking about stuff that we're not saying that we should have violence, but we're totally saying if there was violence, like we're totally behind it because we are allies of whatever radical crap you come up with. Here's a white lady who's doing some sort of rally. By the way, if you didn't see it, the white lady professor had a Apple computer, nothing better than that, which actually uses like slave labor to create it, right? That's what we're told. She had a Macintosh laptop, an Apple laptop that said, "This machine kills fascism." Again, language is powerful. In this moment means that you're talking about an imminence. And using words and rhetoric of violence will eventually take us there. How do we know that? We've already seen what happens when you start talking about offing people. We saw 2 people attempt to assassinate Donald Trump before he was elected. Right? These words eventually get to one person's ear who takes it as a mission statement and not as like rhetoric. Here she is. This lady's talking about, we're not condoning violence, but like, we totally need to get him out of here. And they're talking about Donald Trump in this case.
Get this man out of here now. But if that doesn't happen, and we're not promoting it for 1 second, but if that doesn't happen, there will be violence. Yes. And these people had the opportunity to stop it. And they didn't.
They can stop violence by doing violence and getting him out of here, whatever that means. Like no idea, no plan, just angry, just insanity. Okay. If you don't know that culture, that leftism, that sort of loony sort of fringe that you just heard on that lady, that is actually fairly pervasive in Washington, D.C. government workers. In fact, that might be a government worker who no longer has a job because of Doge. Like that's the kind of thing when we heard J.D. Vance talking the other day about people interrupting his nice event on a Friday because they suddenly had time and why are they not at their jobs? A lot of people are not at their jobs because they're working from home and they're able to be part of this resistance. And they've been doing it the first time. They did it the first time when Donald Trump was in and they want to do it again. They all want to be part of that. And that brings me to this thing that has to happen right now. We are dealing with a moment and it is in fact highly critical. I've got some folks that are friends of mine that I recommended to FBI Director Kash Patel that are now taking hold. I'm not going to say who they are, and it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is he's gotten some of his people. I've gotten some insight onto what's going on there. And I've been a little bit disappointed, probably like many of you, that things have not moved more quickly than they could have. Article coming from the New York Times. I know it's true because Adam Goldman wrote it. There's a few people that have really, really good sourcing inside DOJ and the FBI. Because there's a leftist lean to them. Adam Goldman, who works for the New York Times, writes a lot about it. You also see Ryan Riley do the same thing. He seems to have pretty good sourcing. And so does Ken Klipstein. He's from MSNBC, NBC. These people all have very good sourcing within the FBI. That shouldn't exist, by the way. There's an idea that there are an opportunity for leaks, but the leaks should actually be the director's prerogative. They shouldn't be to the detriment of the director. Previously, you'd see leaks that were basically in favor of the status quo at the FBI. Now, the status quo is trying to change. A director and a new FBI deputy director in Dan Bongino are looking for an opportunity to turn the tide. And in doing so, they need to actually know what the hell is going on. They need to be able to stop media leaks. They need to shut this thing down. I made an interesting recommendation the other day. For whatever it's worth, I'll just share it with you. Like all of these people, they don't make great financial decisions, whether it be that Karen that's sitting up on the screen, or you're talking about professors that don't have any money to buy guns, so they're not really that threatening at this moment. All of the things that have been moving slowly. What we do know is that federal employees are relatively greedy and they're financially insolvent. They don't make great decisions with money. I've seen it everywhere. Even FBI agents are terrible. They used to tell me, hey, why do you have that belt? And I go, because professionals have professional tools. And they go, well, if you just joined SWAT, they would give you a belt in 4 years. Rather than spending like $300 or $400 on like the actual equipment to go do your job, they'd rather wait 3 or 4 years with potential risk of not having the right equipment, not being able to access your weapon or carry the stuff you need. They'd rather just wait for 3 or 4 years before someone gives it to them, because that's the way that people think in the federal bureaucracy. And I'm not exaggerating this. Ask anybody you know. FBI agents are the cheapest people you've ever met. Now Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have to run this organization. So it needs to be stated that you can actually get these people to turn on each other, to rat out their own moles, because who knows better what's going on than the person who's sitting right next to the person. And they know who's been talking to Ryan Riley, and they know who's been talking to Adam Goldman here. The top headline you see, Kash Patel pushes command changes at the FBI. What it's sourced to is that there's an internal email that was obtained by the New York Times. That was not intentionally leaked, most likely, to Adam Goldman. He's on the left. So they're using it to try to discredit what Kash Patel is doing. It's a plan to decentralize the command structure within the Bureau. This is good. Anything that stops the status quo. In fact, they actually seem to be using one of the ideas that I've and the other suspendables have pushed forward, that there will be 3 branch directors at headquarters who handle regional parts of the FBI. Because what happens in West and Central and East are not the same. I recommended time zone based areas for the FBI to control so that you always have someone working in that time zone that reports to the director directly or to the deputy director and actually solves these problems. And they've said basically the special agents in charge are going to do that. They're reorganizing the command structure from these 7 branches or 6 branches that used to be there to 3 regional branches based on geography. It's really what should have been done a long time ago. The FBI is living in the past and has been. And that's why they're angry about Dan Bongino coming in, but it's far too early. You see Eli Crane here in this thing. He wrote, the FBI is so back simply because Dan Bongino was sworn in at a critical time for the nation. No. Now you've landed on the beach. You have dropped the gate, and it is time to take this territory. They've got probably 2 weeks to make some solid momentum moving forward. The FBI director has always been from the outside. The deputy director has always been from the inside. The FBI deputy director has always run the FBI. And then you bring in a director who has like vision and says things. And then the deputy carries it out if he agrees with them, or he protects the FBI. Almost always the DD job that Dan Bongino has taken has been someone internal to the FBI who says, this is how we've always done it. They maintain protection over the status quo. For the first time, you're not going to have that. So they have a real potential now. You've got 2 guys at the top who are supposed to be running the Bureau. One ostensibly does it in leadership format and vision. The other one who handles the nuts and bolts. Both of them are from the outside. You have an opportunity to do something that has not been done in a very long time. And it would be great if they did it. It'd be really great if Dan is successful, but they've got to go fast and they've got to look at this like momentum is the only option. Forward and inertia. They have to keep moving. If you stop, you die, just like standing in the middle of the beach while the machine gun nests up on the cliffs are shooting down at you. There is no time. So it is not time to do an end zone dance. It is time to make aggressive movements forward, to do what Stephen Miller is saying, calling out morons where they are, not giving anybody a soundbite. And not getting snowed by the fact that we've got cool toys. Yeah, the other day we had a video of Kash Patel that was released by the FBI. They said it was a recruiting tool. It was showing him hanging out with the HRT guys. This is the problem with the FBI. They come in, they wrap you up, they look at all these cool toys. It's the ring of power. It's like all this power and all this cool stuff could be yours. What the ring of power protects is itself. It doesn't want to be thrown into the fire. So it doesn't matter who it goes to. It'll corrupt anybody. And it tries to corrupt every director, including Kash Patel, and it will try to corrupt Dan Bongino in the same way. Their job is to work against that by understanding what the actual threat looks like. And someone like a Garrett O'Boyle, someone like Phil Kennedy, who is the producer emeritus of this program, someone like a Steve Friend would be a great ally to see through the BS as they try to wrap and insulate and status quo and say, isn't it cool? All this power is yours. Meanwhile, the power protects the power itself. If there's one thing that we've been trying to convey for the last 2 years, it's that the animal does not want to be tamed. It wants to continue itself. It wants to run itself. And it's more than happy to pretend that it's now it's tame and it'll still wait and it'll try to bite you. And you can tell it's biting them because you've got articles like Kash Patel pushes command structure changes being leaked by non-friendlies to non-friendlies. The fight is just beginning there. For all of you that are out there saying in the chat that Dan Bongino is well aware, I assure you, he is not. He cannot be, because he hasn't worked for the government in a decade and change, and he's never worked for the FBI. He's about to walk into the lion's den and be surrounded by a bunch of smiling, sycophantic people that are saying, yes, sir, and being very respectful, meanwhile stabbing him in the back. It is far more malicious and ugly because the tools they have are much more damaging. And his profile can be more easily damaged than almost anybody else because he is so public, because he has said so many things publicly. And if they can make him look incompetent or foolish, they will do it at every turn, and they will eliminate him. It is an incredibly dangerous position he has just walked into. When I saw the pictures of him getting sworn in, I went, okay, he's probably saying, what the hell did I sign up for? Because once you've walked around and you see the rot that exists in there and the smiling faces, this is going to be an incredibly difficult uphill battle. Anybody who thinks it's over because you got the right team on the field has never watched a single sporting event where the underdogs who have been working together for a decade have a far superior battle plan. They've done it over and over again. All of you, I put you on the chat up here so that you're on record. You're scrolling through here saying that the problem is solved because he's there. I assure you it is not. It is not solved. This is a critical and pivotal time in this moment, as our Democrat friends have been saying in the Mockingbird media. It also holds true for us. There is a short and important moment where we can actually see some value and movement forward on this. They have to take this beach. I had some very encouraging news from some friends of mine that are working there. The team is getting assembled, but they have no time to lose. They need to be ruthless. They need to be aggressive, and they need to be unapologetic in the same way that we just saw Stephen Miller dismantle CNN hosts. They need to be doing this behind closed doors where you don't see it. So whether the JFK files come out today, which I didn't acknowledge at all because I just don't care. I don't care about the JFK files. Those have been not relevant to me for my entire life. It's the same story that I don't care about the Epstein files. I want to see the root problem solved. I want to see the bureaucracy dismantled to the point where it can no longer come after you or come after me and my family. I don't want to be a victim of these people. And I certainly don't want to be while people that I consider to be friendlies are running the organization. Continue to push, continue to be aware, and do not just say, we got the right team in, like a Donald Trump won, so we won. Nope. That means we won the coin toss. All right? There's a lot more to this, and it'll continue to go on until we see all of these plans enacted, until we actually see some real aggressive prosecutions, some people who don't just get to retire in place, but actually see consequences for the things they've done. There's been a lot of evil that has been done over the last couple of years. And it needs to be corrected. All right, that's my soapbox. That's what I have to say. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying when it comes to FBI stuff, most of you probably don't know as much as what I'm talking about. And almost none of you have experienced the same thing that I have, which is to watch an animal that you used to trust turn around and bite you, not in the hand, but in the butt when you weren't looking. And it hurts. It's not fun. The fact that we've lived through it has only been because we had access to media. We've had access to you. So I am eternally grateful that you listened, even if we don't always agree on things. This is the way we do it. Go out and share this program. Do me the big favor. If you're watching it, make sure you like it. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We'll carry on and do what we do over here. It's at Kyle Seraphin on X and on YouTube. It's kyleseraphin.com. If you want to go to locals and you want to directly support us, we get your bribe money over there. So we give you a little bit of access to things like our call-in show on Thursdays and early access to our interview. Go listen to our interesting interview with Jordan Goudreau, which is very strange. It's a wild story. It's another example of how evil some things can be. Basically a guy sounding like he was doing the right thing or thought he was, and then getting like played by all the administrative sort of deep state apparatus that's out there. They're all there and they're all interested in doing one thing, looking out for themselves. All right, and share us over on Spotify if you would. Thanks so much for joining us today. I've got some more stuff, but we'll have to just play it again tomorrow. I wonder if I can give you guys a song. Let me do a song for you. How about that? I had a song that stuck in my head. This one is like full of swear words, so bear with me and don't play this at work. How about a palate cleanse? We need it. This is the song about what happens when you've run out of F's to give. Again, turn it down if you're at work.
I tried, and I tried even more. I cried, and I can't recall what for. I pressed, I pushed, I yelled and begged in hopes of some success. But the inevitable fact is that it never will impress. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks have runneth dry. I tried to go fuck shopping, but there's no fucks left to buy. I've no more fucks to give, the more fucks I've tried to get. I'm over my fuck budget and I'm now in fucking debt. I strive to get everything done. I played by all the rules, but I very rarely won. I've smiled, I've charmed, I would have laughed, alas to no avail. I'd run round like a moron to unequivocally fail. I've no more fucks to give, my fuse has just blown. I've been hunting for my fucks all day, but they've upped and fucked off home. I've no more fucks to give, my fuck rations are depleted. I've rallied my fuck army, but it's been fucking defeated.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.